Guten Tag. I am Karl Mannheim, a Hungarian-born German sociologist, best known as the founding figure of the Sociology of knowledge. Fleeing fascism and anti-Semitism, I continued my intellectual journey in Germany, Austria, and later Britain, where I helped reshape modern sociological thinking. I argued that knowledge is never produced in a vacuum. It is always influenced by social context, power, and ideology. My work exposed how thought itself can be shaped by class, culture, and historical moment. Welcome to Socio-Exploration. Let me take you through my intellectual legacy. I was born on March 27, 1893, in Budapest, Hungary. My early life was steeped in the intellectual and political ferment of Central Europe. I studied philosophy and sociology in Budapest, Berlin, and Heidelberg, where I came under the influence of Max Weber and Georg Simmel. I taught in Frankfurt during the vibrant Weimar years, contributing to the Institute for Social Research. With the rise of Nazism, I was forced to flee due to my Jewish background and progressive ideas. I eventually settled in the UK, becoming a professor at the London School of Economics and later at the University of London. Throughout my exile, I was supported by my wife Julia Lang. Though I was uprooted from my homeland, my commitment to intellectual inquiry remained strong. My journey from Hungary to Germany to England was a personal odyssey shaped by the crises of 20th century Europe. I passed away in London on January 9, 1947. Though my life was cut short, my ideas lived on. In a world increasingly shaped by ideology, I left behind a blueprint for understanding the relationship between knowledge and power. As a sociologist deeply concerned with how human thought is shaped by society, I focused not only on what people believe, but why they believe it. My goal was to uncover the invisible forces, social position, historical context, class interests, that shape knowledge itself. I believed that understanding these forces could help us distinguish between ideas that maintain power and those that inspire change. My major theoretical contributions, sociology of knowledge, ideology and utopia, and relationism, form a framework for understanding the relationship between knowledge, power, and social transformation. First, my most significant contribution to sociology is the sociology of knowledge, which explores the idea that knowledge is not produced in isolation, but is shaped by the social and historical conditions of the people who create it. I argued that what we consider truth is often influenced by our class, culture, location, and political standpoint. For example, a working-class person and a ruling-class individual may develop very different understandings of justice, freedom, or equality, not because one is right or wrong, but because their experiences and interests shape their worldview. To analyze how these worldviews emerge, I introduced the concepts of particular ideology and total ideology. Particular ideology refers to distortions in thinking that arise from personal interest, such as a politician defending policies that benefit only their class. Total ideology, on the other hand, refers to entire systems of thought created by social classes. For instance, capitalism and socialism both offer different ideological frameworks because they are grounded in different class realities. Instead of embracing relativism, the idea that all knowledge is equally valid, I proposed relationism, the belief that knowledge can be judged and understood in relation to its social context. This allows for critical thinking without giving up the pursuit of truth. Through this, I opened a new path in sociology to understand how society not only structures behavior, but also the very ways we think. Second, in Ideology and Utopia, 1936, I explored how different social groups produce different systems of thought based on their position in society. I argued that ideas are never truly neutral. They are shaped by the interests and goals of the groups that create them. Broadly speaking, I divided these thought systems into two types: ideologies and utopias. Ideologies are ideas that help preserve the existing social structure. They often come from dominant groups and serve to justify inequality, power hierarchies, and the belief that the current system is natural, inevitable, or the best possible one. In contrast, utopias are ideas that emerge from oppressed or marginalized groups. These ideas imagine alternative futures and challenge the status quo. While some may dismiss utopian thinking as unrealistic, I saw it as essential for progress. Utopian thought expresses the desire for transformation and reveals the deep dissatisfaction of those who suffer under the current conditions. In times of social change, utopian ideas become especially powerful. They inspire action, generate hope, and offer a vision of a better world. Thus, my work showed that the battle of ideas in any society is not just intellectual, it is deeply political. Whether ideas serve to maintain domination or to fight for liberation depends on who produces them and for what purpose. Understanding this tension between ideology and utopia allows us to see how thought itself becomes a tool in the struggle for power and social change. Third, in my exploration of how knowledge is shaped by society, I confronted a difficult question. If all knowledge is influenced by social position, can we ever know what is true? Some critics feared that my theory led to relativism, the belief that all perspectives are equally valid and that truth is entirely subjective. Others clung to absolutism, which claims that truth exists independently of context and can be known objectively. I rejected both extremes and introduced a middle path: relationism. Relationism accepts that knowledge is always produced from a particular standpoint, shaped by history, culture, and class, but this does not mean that truth is meaningless or unreachable. Instead, it means that we must understand where knowledge comes from and evaluate it in relation to its social origins. Rather than treating all opinions as equally valid, relationism encourages critical comparison of perspectives to see which ones reveal deeper insight into the workings of society, justice, and power. In this way, I defended the possibility of meaningful knowledge without ignoring its social roots. Truth, in my view, is relational. It gains strength not from pretending to be universal, but from being examined across different contexts. Relationism, therefore, allows us to pursue understanding without falling into either dogma or confusion. Despite being displaced by war and fascism, I remained committed to understanding how society thinks, plans, and changes. My writings were shaped by the crises of the 20th century, rising totalitarianism, the collapse of democracy, and the need for reconstruction. Though my time in academia was turbulent and often interrupted, I produced a series of influential works that helped redefine the direction of modern sociology, political theory, and education. Below are some of the most important contributions of my intellectual journey. 1. Ideology and Utopia, 1929 in German, 1936 in English. This was my most renowned and groundbreaking book. In it, I examined how different social classes create different systems of knowledge shaped by their unique experiences and needs. I introduced the concepts of ideology, which defends the status quo, and utopia, which seeks to transform it. I argued that no thought is neutral. Every worldview is a reflection of a group's position in society. This work laid the foundation for the sociology of knowledge, showing how political and cultural ideas emerge from social conditions, not in abstract isolation. Second, Man and Society in an Age of Reconstruction, 1940. Written during my time in Britain, this book was my response to the social and moral breakdown caused by war and fascism. Here, I explored how society could be rebuilt on more democratic, rational, and cooperative foundations. I emphasized the role of education, planning, and social responsibility in stabilizing modern life. It was a call for planned democracy, a society where knowledge and governance are not left to chance, but guided by shared values and ethical foresight. I also warned that without careful reconstruction, societies might fall into authoritarianism again. 3. Diagnosis of Our Time, 1943. In the midst of World War II, I published this book to analyze the deep cultural and ideological crises of the modern era. I looked at how individuals were becoming alienated and how totalitarian ideologies gained appeal. I explored the loss of spiritual values in a technocratic, mechanized world and stressed the need for moral vision in politics and education. This work was both a critique and a prescription, urging societies to rethink their direction before it was too late. 4. Freedom, Power, and Democratic Planning, 1950 posthumous. Published after my death, this book summarized my lifelong concern with balancing freedom and social order. I argued that democracy must be actively planned and protected, especially in an age of centralized power and mass communication. I emphasized the role of intellectuals, education systems, and public planning in sustaining open societies. Unlike authoritarian regimes, I believed democratic planning should be transparent, participatory, and aimed at enhancing human dignity. Together, these publications formed a visionary sociology, one that recognized the dangers of ideological manipulation, but also believed in the transformative power of knowledge, education, and collective will. They continue to inspire social scientists, educators, and thinkers across the world. I laid the groundwork for critical sociology, cultural studies, and even postmodern thought. My insight that knowledge is embedded in social life remains foundational across disciplines. From Frankfurt to London, from pre-war Europe to post-war reconstruction, my ideas have helped generations understand that truth is not just found, it is socially made. Do subscribe, like and click the bell icon for future notifications. Vielen Dank und ich wünsche Ihnen einen schönen Tag.